1, 2, 3, and 4. So I was riding the bus this evening, and these two 15-ish-year-old girls were on the phone with a boy, and they were having about the cutest conversation I've ever heard, which was that one of the girls was best friends with the other girl, and the boy on the phone was also the other girl's best friend. And so the first girl and the boy were fighting over who got to be the best friend. And the boy was jealous, and the girl kept telling him, no, it's okay, she can have a guy best friend and a girl best friend. We both have different things to offer and different things that we can talk about. And she kept saying very loudly and dramatically, we're different genders. We have different areas of conversation that we can have. You're not being replaced. It was about the cutest thing ever. And it was very silly and over the top. Meanwhile, this older lady was watching them, and I assumed that me, she thought this was really cute, and suddenly she started complaining to her son, who was in his 40s, and she was mad at the little girls. She was I don't even know how to describe this. She was viciously angry at them for having this conversation where anyone could hear it. And it was literally a conversation about being best friends. I can't imagine what they could have been talking about that would have been more wholesome. I don't know. It really struck me. I was furious. I think I was maybe one of the maddest times I've been in my life. I couldn't believe this lady was such a bummer. But she was real mad. Her poor son was just trying to calm her down because she was so angry that these two little girls were joking around with their friend on the phone about being best friends with each other. So that happened. Also this morning, my roommate Rachel got a box from Zappos, which is a website that sells shoes, if you didn't know. And it was the size of a person. And I was why would Rachel get so many shoes? And then, well, you don't know Rachel, but I immediately knew. She ordered every kind of shoe so that she could try on all of the shoes and decide which one she wants, because that's what Rachel will think is the most organized thing to do. Apparently I was right. I can't, I shouldn't go into her room and show you, but there's this human-sized box of shoes, and then on top of it there's all the shoe boxes, and it's a sight to behold. I also think it would be funny if instead of Zappos, it was Zapdos, and it was a box of, Zapdos, the electric bird Pokemon. I have my Magikarp here, which my friend Matthew gave me for my birthday last year. 28 is the Magikarp year. I've always loved Magikarp. I'm sure I've made a video about this before, but if you don't play Pokemon, why are you here? But I guess it's kind of one of the jokes of the Pokemon franchise that Magikarp is a really useless Pokemon that barely has any attacks. Doesn't really have any attacks. Its main attack, Splash, is useless, and it's really weak. But so you basically have to just coddle it in order to train it to get to level 20, and then at that point it turns into Gyarados, which is kind of well, a dragon. And Gyarados is really powerful, so it's you have to take really good care of this Pokemon that you don't really care about because it can't do anything for you. When I was a kid, the noise that Magikarp made, to me sounded I felt I could smell a bad smell just when I heard it. It was But you have to take care of Magikarp so that you can get Gyarados, which is a really powerful Pokemon. This has always fascinated me as an autistic person, because I feel that's really what, that's why I feel we've talked about this before. I think that, in pop culture, people seem to be really fascinated by autistic people or any other disabled person who they think has the potential to have a special gift or a savant skill, because it's they think that in general society has a lot of contempt for disabled people and doesn't see them as having a lot of value, particularly if they're unable to work or in some other way, unable to do what people think is the point of life, which is apparently to just work, or I don't know, check off a certain number of items on a list of like life activities. And so people are fascinated by the concept that autistic people or blind people or like schizophrenic people might have some kind of like, really intense talent in some area. And so suddenly, it's confusing to people because the same people who they usually wouldn't give the time of day and wouldn't see as like important in the same way that they see typical people as important, suddenly this person has like a skill, and so like people suddenly see them as valuable basically because they're able to do something that's like respected by society, or like they might become really wealthy or famous or something like that. You can see like how much stock I put in that kind of thing. But yeah, I think that's why, the media has a lot of fascination with autistic people, because they see us as disabled people, but like, somehow like not disabled at the same time. And, that always has really gotten on my nerves. It's like the idea that instead of just accepting that, maybe people are all valuable, and just because people aren't able to like be successful in a certain way or like achieve a particular model of success, that doesn't mean that they're not a valuable person and their life has meaning. Like, no. Like, just this small group of disabled people I'm going to decide are valuable because they have the potential to do something that I think is valuable, maybe. So in that sense, I've always felt that we're kind of seen as Magikarps. Like, they don't see us as valuable in ourselves, but because we might evolve into a Gyarados. So, that's just my feeling. As life has gone on, I've gone from really disliking Magikarp when I was a kid to being really fond of Magikarp and relating to him. Like, I don't necessarily need to be a Gyarados to have value. I don't need to be, good in battle. I can continue to utilize Splash as my only move for the rest of my life. I had, initially today I was going to do, like, a sad video. Not really a sad video, but I was just kind of struggling with some stuff this morning and trying to come to a conclusion of how to, like, move on from those feelings. So I was going to try to make a video about it, but, I don't know if I will. It's kind of a big issue, like I've mentioned in previous videos, and I think this will probably be something that I get sad about regularly for the rest of my life. Like, because I'm autistic, there's a degree to which I'm, like, if you look up activities of daily living, which is kind of a catch-all term for things like getting dressed and eating and getting out of bed and stuff like that, like, I'm basically able to do those things, like not well, like, I can't really cook for myself, and, like, I struggle with doing some of those things, but, like, I basically can do them on a regular basis, and I can basically hold down a job. But, if you look up, like, instrumental activities of daily living, that goes into things that aren't, like, quite as everyday and, like, are a little bit more complex, like using the phone and managing money and doing grocery shopping and stuff. And, like, by and large, I either can't do or, like, really struggle with doing most of those things and can't really do them on a regular basis. So, yeah, I guess I am and probably always will be struggling with, like, how to get through life in that type of situation. There's a lot of stuff that I usually need to get other people to help me with, or just, like, not do them. And I think because I'm often really focused on, like, the day-to-day stuff of, like, getting up and getting dressed and going to work and eating, and that's very, like, exhausting for me to handle, it's kind of like, a lot of the time I don't even think about that other stuff, like the fact that, like, well, you don't need to see my room, but a lot of the time, like, I live in, like, an extremely, like, messy room that I'm not really able to clean, and, like, I've kind of managed to get a hold of, like, paying bills and stuff, but it took, like, a lot of work, and it still takes, like, a lot of work and effort to, like, have figured out a system for that, like, I'm basically able to remember to do stuff like that. If you're autistic or otherwise, like, bad brains and trying to figure out how to do it, basically what I do is, like, once a week I sort of take my computer and go to, like, a coffee shop or something. For me, I think it's always harder to do anything that's hard or figure out how to approach anything that's hard if I'm also like at all stressed out or uncomfortable, or if I feel pressured. So the best thing for me is to like take a weekend day when I don't have anything to do and go to a coffee shop that I like and just like basically give myself like hours or the whole day to just like go through a simple list of like things that I need to like think about. Like, do I have any bills that I need to pay? Like, do I owe anybody any money? Like, what are the important things that I should try to do in the next week? Stuff like that. So it doesn't necessarily go great, but I feel like I've definitely done a lot better since I've, had the habit of like sitting down and like thinking through all of those things once a week. So that's the only advice that I have. And as you can see, I'm doing great. Oh, I'm crying. So I guess the main thing that I have continued to struggle with and that has made everything worse has been that for about 4 years, since I was like 25, I'm almost 29 now, I've had chronic pain, and I've never really gotten any kind of diagnosis for the type of pain that I have. And in the last year, like, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which, like, I know is a real condition, and I definitely wouldn't be surprised if that was what I had, and it's like what I suspected before I was diagnosed with that. But I also kind of felt like the way I was given the diagnosis by my provider at the time was literally like, okay, the test that we gave you, like, we didn't find like any diseases that would explain why you have chronic pain, so we're giving you this as like a diagnosis of exclusion. I'm not sure if I believe that that's what I have, or if I think that I have something else, or what. But it's something that I've really been struggling with over the last few years, because I guess I just like don't feel equipped to deal with having chronic pain. And most of the advice that I'm given about like how to manage it, like, I don't know, like being really, really careful about how I eat, and like observing if I'm in pain after I eat certain things, or like doing stretches every day and stuff like that. Like, a lot of the things that I've been suggested to do, like, when I have done them, they haven't helped. But it's also like a lot of those tasks are like really, really complex for someone like me, and I'm struggling so much day to day, and like always have been, that I'm not really able to like manage those things. And like all the medications that I've tried to take for it have ended up either like having like side effects that I couldn't deal with, either mentally or physically, or the only one that doesn't have like side effects really is gabapentin, which I was never really sure if it was actually helping, but it's like you have to take so much of it for it to work that it's like these huge like horse pills. To me, anyway, I have a lot of trouble swallowing pills, which is another thing. But like I was having to take them like so many times a day that it was really hard for me to manage, and I wasn't really seeing any improvement to my pain. So I don't know, it's just kind of this thing where it's like, it's not like I want to have some like bad, like really medical diagnosis for why I have chronic pain. And I think it's obvious that since I've had this stuff going on for 4 years, and like, while it hasn't, like, it's gotten worse, but it's not like I've like died or something. So I think it's probably, not something serious. But at the same time, it's like, if it's really like just pain and like no medical stuff, like, for me practically, that's kind of bad, because if it's supposed to be stuff that a person can handle on their own, like, I cannot. Like, I've been trying for years to like cope with being in a lot of pain every day and trying to like get through my day anyway, and I have to say it's not going well. So yeah, I guess I feel very frustrated, because I feel like every so often I start going to the doctor again, and I really push. Like, I go back to the doctor with sort of like this new like willpower, and I go and I like really advocate to be like given certain tests, or like referred to a specialist, or like whatever. And I go and like I feel like I just last like a few times, like, and it just feels like everybody that I talk to doesn't really seem to, I mean, I think this is kind of a common experience for anybody who has chronic pain, especially women, but like, you know, I go in and it kind of just feels like everyone just wants me to go away, and like if they can just like make up a stupid like excuse or suggestion of something in my life that I should change so I won't be in pain anymore, that's like all that they'll do. And yeah, it feels like I wish that I had this like iron will that I don't have, so I could like stick up for myself in these situations. And it feels like there's just no, I don't know, I just like don't have the get up and go to try and advocate for myself to like receive like a diagnosis and just like more help with this kind of stuff than I have. So it's really hard because it was hard for me to do things before, and now that I'm like regularly in a lot of pain, it's just that much worse. And anyway, I was thinking about this today. I used to read a lot of Christian blogs, and you know, segue. I remember reading this one blog where this particular Christian guy complained that he thought the Christian kids today were really concerned about sort of something kind of, not exactly self-centered, but that they were very concerned about like their relationship with God in terms of like their personal faith and their like Bible study and like how much they went to church. And this guy was kind of like, you know, I don't really think that's like what people need to be focusing on, or like what people need to be like beating themselves up on for not like achieving their standard. Like people really need to just be working on like what they contribute to the world, and if they're living like a Christian life and doing the right stuff. I think for me, this is what I concluded today. I was getting in kind of a bad mood because I volunteered at this dog rescue, and when I started volunteering there, it was about the time that I started having chronic pain. So after volunteering there for like about a year, I quit for 2 years because I was like struggling so much with like getting up in the morning to go volunteer, and if I didn't sleep very much, like the pain would be like much worse, and like I would be in pain from like, you know, carrying little dogs, like, you know, like a dog the size of this Magikarp. Like it was just like hard enough on my body, and like I craved like just a few more hours sleep, like so much more, that I ended up kind of like cutting out my volunteering. Anyway, like I decided that I should go back like several months ago. I decided that I wanted to go back anyway, because I think like over the amount of time that I've had chronic pain, I think the only thing that I've really like learned is to just like deal with it and like just work through it no matter how much it hurts, which isn't like a great solution, but it's like it's certainly not like it goes away if you work through it, but it's also kind of like, at least emotionally, I'm not going to feel better if I stay home, so like I'd rather go and do stuff even if I'm in pain, because like, you know, I'm going to be happier doing that than I would be staying home. So anyway, so I decided to volunteer again. I'm having a good time volunteering with the dogs, the dog rescue, but like I really still like really struggle to get up. And I think like, whereas I used to be able to get up early, like after years of dealing with the pain stuff, like sometimes I wake up and like it's just hurting so much that I just like can't bring myself to move, and I'm just like, so I'm like trying to think about the day and like the things that I'm gonna get to do, and like I'm just like, it's going to hurt so much when I do all of those things, and I'm so frustrated and just like overwhelmed that I just can't move. So because of that, I think I've been really having a hard time getting out of bed to go to the dog rescue. I feel really bad about it because it's not like, you know, they have, even though it's a volunteer thing, like they do rely on volunteers to show up when they said they were going to be there, because otherwise they won't have enough people to take care of all the rescue dogs. So I don't know, I felt very frustrated with myself because I feel like I'm often late. I wasn't able to like volunteer as much as I wanted to. Like I feel like frustrated with myself because I feel like, you know, it doesn't really like, the dogs don't care that I'm in pain. Like if I say that I'm going to be there at a certain time, like I should be there. But I often feel like no amount of like guilt or obligation, which used to kind of be the only things that would motivate me when I was struggling with like executive function stuff. You know, I'd like promise a friend that I'd do something, and like that was often like a good way when I was dealing with executive function and like motivation to get myself to do something that I had like promised someone else that I would do it. But at this point, like even knowing that I'm gonna let someone down, like I'll get things set up and like I'll still let them down because like I just can't bring myself to do it. So I was feeling pretty frustrated with myself, and then I was giving some dogs a bath, and I felt a lot more positive. It wasn't a positive experience for the dogs. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of dogs don't like to take a bath, and they find it scary, especially in the big sink at the dog rescue. They don't like it at all. But I guess I just got very absorbed in what I was doing, and I kind of found myself thinking, like, there's kind of this sense where I feel a lot of guilt for not being able to take better care of myself, and I guess a lot of guilt for not being, like, a good chronically ill person, or a good autistic person, like, not being able to, like, be high-functioning, or, like, super crippy, or tough, or like always work through the pain, or be able to like manage my chronic pain in the best way, or manage my autism in the best way so that I wouldn't have to like I don't know, so I could be more functional. But it's kind of funny because like I think most of all I feel guilty that I'm like letting myself down, that I'm not living some like ideal life, you know, the Gyarados life, the Sea Dragon life, the Hydro Pump life that I should be living, because I'm not able to manage all these things. I found myself thinking that instead of, like, feeling guilty for letting myself down, because really, like, I can just decide that that's okay with me. I can actually just forgive myself for that. So I guess I kind of decided that instead of, like, beating myself up for stuff like that, I would try to just enjoy and feel good about the little ways that I can, like, put something positive in other people's or dogs' lives. Even if it's really just showing up to like give some dogs a bath that they really hate and are not grateful for anyway. I feel like even if the dogs can't forgive me for giving them a bath, I can at least forgive myself for having such a hard time getting out of bed to come and give the dogs a bath. I hope this video wasn't too much of a bummer, but I feel like most of my viewers are autistic, and like, I hate to say it, but I feel like a lot of us, by the time we're adults, if we don't have like a big support system, we're all kind of in the same boat, and like we don't have to say that this is depressing. Like, it's just life for a lot of us. So, yeah.